exactly what it says. It's highly strange. We talk about all the events of the last several years, especially, and how they relate to our reality and human behavior. So, with that out of the way, I was not going to do a video on this topic, but I decided to go ahead and do it because I saw a few other things that correlate with it, and I just had to, nobody was mentioning this aspect. And I dip my feet in all genres to my dad's extreme dissatisfaction. One of my science teacher once called me a social butterfly, which is good if you're in human behavior or social class, but I wasn't. It was science class. I try to dip my feet in all the different genres and paradigms, and I see that there are some things people are missing. Just because, again, there's so much information out there with the internet, we can't all touch on everything, right, in one lifetime, let alone just 1 week or a few days of research. So I'm going to go over with you real quick a few things. I have the links already pulled up, ready to go. I believe the pertinent ones are in the description box. So with that said, let's get started. We're going to start with this, The Sky, a short film. I'm going to read to you the synopsis of this film, and I hope that you comprehend what I'm trying to tell you in regards to this rumor going around about Earth losing gravity for 7 seconds, because there's something else that happens on that day that nobody's talking about either. Either they didn't put it together, or they're in the club and they don't want you to correlate these two things together. And I forgot to put it in the title. Shoot. I wonder if I could go back and do it from here. No. So the other thing that we're going to touch on, if you happen to step in and you want to hear what the video is about, is there's an eclipse on this day as well. And nobody's talking about that aspect of it. So I'm going to talk about it because it goes over a very interesting country. I'll just say that. All right, so getting started. The Sky. I just watched this probably about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago now. I did share it on my community tab. It was made in 2020. It's only 11 minutes long, but it is the best usage of 11 minutes I think I have ever seen. In this 11 minutes, you meet this girl who, in essence, goes over her life within the film, within all the action that's happening. So she's, that last, how they say, when you die, you go over every moment of your life. Well, that's what she's doing because they know that this day is coming. And what is this day? Well, everything floats into the sky. That's what you're starting to see is debris here. I'm going to read to you a little bit of this. It says, as the world commences its end, a young runaway must figure out if she has chosen the right person to spend her final moments with. Which, does it really matter at that point? Director Matt Sears, writer Ryan Grundy. I want to take a quick peek into him. I didn't look at him because this plot line is not only the plot line for a short film, but I believe also what is referred to as creepypastas, which by modern day accounts are kind of urban legends that the kids pass around. I was just curious if he had any other credits. Charlie Boy, he wrote in 2016. There's that name again. It's related to all kinds of things. I told you when I had my head injury in 2019, so that I was not mad at the person who injured me, who traumatized me, I blame doors now. So they're inanimate objects, and I call them Charlie. So it's interesting to see. He also directed a movie called Charlie Boy, and we have Charlie Kirk, and there's also an operation. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but there's an operation or a project that has the name Charlie in it as well. Charlie is also the words used in the Vietnam War for the enemy. They called them Charlie's coming, don't let Charlie get you. So I find that very interesting that name is in the common vernacular and is being spread around as well. So not only are they serving us up another script. But why are they doing this? Why are they saturating the media with all of this high strangeness, right? Well, what else takes place on August 12th, you ask? 2026? Why, friend, let me tell you. An eclipse. An eclipse takes place on August 12th, 2026. They are referring to it as the next great eclipse is coming. How to plan for your total eclipse viewing pleasure, blah, blah, blah. Let me give you a quick overview. It's very interesting, the country that it goes over. Nobody's mentioning this. This country is also a code word used in Freemasonry. And I'm starting to wonder if it's the code, if it's the universal code for help. We never find out what that is. We know Joseph Smith used it when he was on the galleys or about to be hung because he was a Freemason. But we don't know what that is for sure. At least I don't. And so on August 12th, a total solar eclipse will occur at the moon's descending node of orbit on Wednesday, August 12th, 2026, with a magnitude, here we go with the numbers again, 1.0386. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun and totality or partly obscures the view of the sun for the viewer on Earth. What I find fascinating about this as well, not only is nobody mentioning, this is obscure. I watch short films a lot, so of course I would know that it's a movie script, but not a lot of people do. People that are on YouTube a lot would though, like influencers, like people behind the scenes that you never see. And I've talked about that before a little bit. So, gravity and eclipses held supernatural and spiritual meaning to those who interpreted them in ancient times, every civilization and every culture. I'm going to give you a brief rundown, and I'm also going to give you more information about gravity. Just some bullet points here. This video isn't going to be too long. I want it easily accessible for those who may just be joining the channel or just coming into, how we roll here. And I love when people collaborate. I used to get all kinds of information. I feel like this channel is really shadow banned. There's no comments once the videos are posted. I get bots in the comment section when it's live. It is highly maddening. Something else, all these things happening that are from my life, it's very telling about why people are treating me the way they are. So, well, Jen, you're going to say, where does this solar eclipse occur? Where do you think it goes over, guys? What country has been mentioned by Mr. Trump, Mr. G himself, for the last year or two? What country has Trump been talking about over and over ad nauseum? And it also is highly significant symbolism in Freemasonry. I think with a ritual or an initiation. I don't recall that bit. Greenland, okay? So everyone is telling you that Earth is going to lose its gravity on August 12th for 7 seconds. They're not telling you that there's also an eclipse on that day when this happens. And that eclipse goes over, the totality will be in Greenland and where else? Hang on. Pass over the Arctic Ocean, Greenland, Iceland, Atlantic Ocean, Portugal, and northern Spain, guys. But I'm fascinated. I'm highly interested and intrigued in the fact that it's crickets. Nobody's talking about this. No other creator have I seen mention the eclipse. Everybody's been talking about eclipses since 2017, but nobody's mentioning this one. But even creators that aren't into strangeness are talking about the Earth possibly losing its gravity for 7 seconds. Now, I do believe that the sky will roll back in the heavens, and I do believe that's highly technological. I believe God is highly technological, and we should change or maybe open our minds a little bit regarding the framework of God and his helpers. High tech is their domain. Some angels, I believe, are highly made of high tech itself. We'll get into that in another video. but for no other creators to be mentioning that that day is also the day of a solar eclipse where the totality passes over Greenland is telling. And you should be asking why no one is mentioning this. Well, very few. I haven't seen it. Hi, thank you. It's an actual person. Thank you for being here. Welcome. Oh, is it? It is Michael. Hi, Michael. Thanks for being here. And you were right. I would expect you to know, but so few people are paying attention to much these days. I am fishing. I'm a fisher of men. I'm trying to see who will just like, straggle in or saunter into the channel, stumble into the channel, and just offer up my help in the way that I can. And that is through pop culture, through movies, through music, and through words, because I know words like nobody's business. That's one thing nobody can tell me much about is words. So let's get into something else. We know that the eclipse is happening. We know that totality passes over Greenland. I've done a video on ancient cultures and what they believe of eclipses. A lot of them, they believe that the sun will be eaten by a monster. That is, for solar eclipses. And then it ascends, it comes back out. I don't know how that happens, but anyway, it's a myth. So now we're going to move from solar eclipses and bounce back to gravity. Because I was wondering, a lot of us know at this point, we've been kind of deceived through words and through modern scientism. And I believe in science, but actual observable, repeatable science. I believe science is the fingerprint of God. Scientism is its own religion, all these isms, right? Scientism is a cult. It really is. And it runs NASA and people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Mr. Nye are a part of that cult. Fauci, they're actors, but they're also a part of the scientism cult. And they use video and words to create illusions around people and false realities that they build up with their own psychology. And that's what we try to break through on this channel a little bit. So what did ancient myths, how did they explain gravity? Because now we know basically, or at least I believe and I know, that the earth is the center of things, that we are the center. That's not being arrogant, because God does not like arrogance or pride. It's not about arrogance, it's about truth, especially on my channel. Let's go back to the ancients, because now a lot of people understand that they were further along than we are now. See, that's what happened, and I believe, and you're not going to agree with me, I believe that the mud flood was people still cleaning up after Noah's flood, because that is how devastating it was. That, you have people taking pictures of it and whatnot. We are just now, they've hit whatever it is they needed to hit with their genetic testing and all that. They have achieved it because they are coming hard and strong with this new world order and the verbiage and disciplining people and indoctrinating them and doing MK Ultra and right in their own living rooms. They don't need to support us at camps. We do it right here. We buy the snacks. We give them our time going to work to earn the money to buy the snacks. We sit on the couch. We turn on the MK Ultra machine, which is the screen. And unlike Clockwork Orange, where they have to hold your eyeballs open, nobody does that for us. We are here willingly allowing them to brainwash us. So I would urge you to steer clear of mainstream media other than, hearing the things that that's repetitive, like this new world order. So we know that they are really pushing for this to be accepted right now. What did ancient myths think about gravity? I believe that they are correct in some of this. Ancient civilizations often explained the phenomenon of things falling to the ground through natural philosophy, elemental theory, or metaphysical connections, rather than as an attractive physical force. The most prominent myth, and they quoted that, or more accurately, proto-scientific theory from the ancient world came from the Greeks, which shouldn't be surprising. And because of all this talk of the Golden Age, I did want to include what everyone thought at this time, especially the Greeks, the Romans, and the Egyptians, because because of the spirit worship, the ancient worship, these ancients have come now and obliged everybody who's been calling upon them. And now we have these ancient spirits that are closer to us than they were before, because I do believe we share the realm too. We just can't see each other all the time. It came from the Greeks, while other cultures offered early mathematical or theological interpretations. What did the Greeks have to say? They had a theory called natural motion, and that came from Aristotle. He argued that gravity was not an external force, but the natural tendency of elements to return to their proper place, which is interesting if you think about it, because where do people always want to go? They all, they will travel and they'll go other places, but they always go home, right, to their home base. So I find it interesting the way that's described. The elements, he believed all things were made of 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire, which I would agree. The theory, earth and water were heavy and moved towards the center of the universe, the center of the earth. Air and fire were light and moved upward away from the center. Why it fell. A rock fell because it was composed of earth and was trying to return to its natural place below the other elements. That's fascinating, but if you get a feather, it does take it longer, but that theory doesn't quite hold all the way. Speed. Aristotle erroneously, and that's their words here, erroneously believed that heavier objects fell faster than lighter ones because they had more of the earth element. Now that's interesting, because a feather does take longer to fall to the earth. Fascinating. The sublunary versus celestial realms. Ancient Greeks, including Aristotle, believed that the rules of motion on earth, sublunary, did not apply to the heavens. I could kind of agree with that, right? That the heavenly domains operate on a different, and this is why there really are different rules for different folks. When reading scripture or ancient texts, we need to understand this, and this is why we're supposed to stay kind of evenly yoked, because our own people understand us, and, we are like who we are raised by in that way. So the 5th element, the moon, stars, and planets were made of a 5th element, or quintessence, which was inherently weightless and moved in perfect circles. Interesting, like the Fibonacci, unlike the linear motion of falling objects. Exceptions. This view held that gravity only applied to earthbound materials. The ancient Indian Dharan Nat Mikam Satki. I am not Indian. I have not studied their language enough. I do believe I might have an Indian young lady that watches my channel, so if you happen to stumble upon this video, I could use your help in that area. Mispronunciations are not intentional. No disrespect intended. Ancient Indian texts provided an alternative perspective, notably from the astronomer, we're going to call him B, who proposed a form of gravity. Now, this Saki, B described a supporting force or attraction in the earth that keeps objects in place. I kind of agree with that, a type of magnetism. And again, I've used this example before, but it reminds me of my Grammys, the old football game that my dad and his brothers used to play that was magnetic, and you would pull the players along with these magnets. Wild game, kind of hard, really fun. But we've talked about magnets before, and they have been a part of this experience here on Earth since the Rona started. Remember all the talk of magnets sticking to people? I had my young one talking about magnets. You see, when they get excited or when they have an illusion they're trying to perform, they won't let you ignore them, and they will hop around you, and it is very reminiscent of elves and pan type behavior. And again, you have to be paying attention. I'm using analogies here, but this Jupiter's Delight, that's what it gets to be like. But they say things to you, and I had this magnet word thrown out at me a few times, and again, it's never in a sentence or a conversation where it makes sense. So you really recognize, like, what are you doing? So moving on. The Surya Siddhanta, he noted the spherical Earth stands at the center of space. I believe that. with this force preventing it from falling away, which predates some European understandings of gravitational attraction. I would agree with that to a point. I do believe that the Earth is round, but flat like a pancake, possibly. I've not been in a plane, but that's what it looks like to me. And you can watch the stars go round and round, so that's kind of what it looks like to me. Hi, Michael. Nice to see you. The myth of natural resting places. Before the concept of forces was defined, people assumed that the ground was simply the natural stopping point for everything. Density and buoyancy. Many ancient thinkers, rather than invoking a god of gravity, explain the phenomena through density and the desire of elements to find their proper level. Support. Other myths, such as that of the Atlas in Greek mythology, holding up the heavens, were used to explain why the sky did not fall. Now that we have that out of the way and we've went over kind of a little bit what the Greeks and Romans thought, we have to look at what the Egyptians thought. And you're going to say, well, Jen, why is that important? And I'm going to say, well, gang, that is important because the Egyptians had a theory that you could stop gravity. And some people believe that this is how the pyramids were made. And this theory that they had, hold on a second, so I can find it. Right here. The role of abolishing gravity in ancient Egypt. That's what they believed you could abolish, that you could stop gravity. Everybody left. What is happening? Are we still alive? Okay. People just left, I guess. They didn't want to hear the rest. All right, so ancient Egyptians, this is what AI says, and I find it interesting because it doesn't agree with some articles and things right over here. And there's a paper from ResearchGate, a PDF file, but it's bigger, an actual file. Funny, that word. RFB was right about that. The role of abolishing gravity in ancient Egypt. Redfern wrote this book, and he believed that you could abolish gravity. He also believed that aliens were demons and all that jazz. Thank you for being here, Michael. I appreciate it. I do. And again, this isn't going to be too much longer, but you got to hear this because it's wild. Now, they believed that through sound, they believed that you could move stone. Now, I don't know if it applies to everything. Thank you for being here. I don't know if it applies to everything because they're very specific. When I went through and I was just grabbing some things for this video, I'm not going to go over whole PDF files in this video, but if you guys want to know more about abolishing gravity, we can talk about it in a future video. So let me know in the comments. But I did want you to know that there's a papyrus that is not complete, of course. It was found in a cemetery. It's interesting because a cemetery is often made up of granite and stones, right? And so granite and stones, if they believed you could move those through sound, it can explain a lot. Even in modern day, it could explain grave robbing, how people get the lids of the coffins up and things like that. And they always say, oh, there has to be more than one person involved. Well, if there's more than one person involved, and they've already cut people, and they're not saying anything, that's surprising. What if they have secrets like this? Now, if the pyramids were actually built this way, I would tend to say possibly, yeah. Because if they use these ramps and all this type of stuff, that would take literally forever. Forever. And I find it interesting, when you look at the AI overview, it brought me up a cosmology, and it brought me up a very specific graphic. And the graphic, hold on. Okay. It's of a flat record like Earth. It has Earth looking like a record and something being in the middle of it. But the cosmology shows the one symbol that Freemasons use. And again, these symbols, I hope people understand that these are symbols that you make with a compass. That's why the compass is important to them, is because you can make all these symbols, proper math, sacred geometry using the actual proper measurements without eyeballing it with no mistakes can be done by using a compass. So it has the one symbol that Freemasons use. It's explaining cosmology of the earth. And it has the sun over here, the moon over here, and a black sun down here, which is underneath the record-like sun, because there's an opening in the center of the record-like sun as well. And that is, they don't say what that is. Hold up, let me pull up the picture. I will use this picture, or I will put it on the community tab so you guys can check it out. But I wanted you to understand that the Egyptians, Babylonians, believed that you could abolish gravity. When all of this started, you saw that Egyptian procession. It was a couple of years ago. It was right after Rona. It was during Rona when everybody was masking. But they were allowed to do this ceremony, moving the sarcophagi from one place to another, which has like never been done ever. And they had this whole ritual doing this. So obviously, not just Roman beliefs and cosmology is important in this time and understanding what they believe, but also the Egyptians and the Norse. You need to understand what the Norse believe as well. And they also did not have a literal concept or a theory of gravity, I believe is what I found. I'm going to give you a quick timeline just so you can in your head. Newton gravity was in 1687 when they started publishing what he believed. 1859 they started publishing about planet Vulcan to explain Mercury's odd behavior, because for some reason Mercury does not behave the same way as the other planets, what they're referring to as planets. We know now that it's not quite what science tells us they are, but that's interesting, though, that they use this mysterious planet that you can't see that's held in orbit by a black hole is why Mercury behaves the way it does. I don't know, I just think that's strange. In 1905, Albert Einstein came up with his theory of relativity. 1907, he predicts gravitational redshift. It was first proposed by him. It predicts that when the wavelength of light coming from atoms in a strong gravitational field will lengthen as it escapes the gravitational force. The longer wavelength shifts the photon to the red end of the electromagnetic spectrum. And it's interesting that now I'm seeing the symbolism with YouTubers who have sold out using the red lights, and their atmosphere is red and black. Red and black are the colors you want to pay attention to. They also are using these safety jackets. They also are using the big dark sunglasses. They probably had the Google glasses before the rest of us had them. They probably have their own channels that they watch us for entertainment and things that we do, because I know that I'm Truman for a fact at this point in one way, shape, or form. So 1915, he published the general theory of relativity. Einstein did. The theory also predicts the existence of black holes and gravitational waves. So he got rid of E equals mc squared. I've heard people say that means Einstein married his second cousin, which he actually did. 1917, Einstein theorizes stimulated emission. So do you see how often we're changing things in science? They would have you believe that science is something that never changes and that you have to stay stuck in your beliefs. But in fact, it is a teaching and learning field, just like medicine. Things are constantly changing because people are constantly learning what works and what doesn't work. And in some cases, what works for one person may not work for someone else in certain instances. So I have that attached if you want to take a deeper look at that as well. And now, I just want to real quick. Now, this is from that PDF file that I was talking to you about the Egyptians believing in abolishing gravity, because I want to give you a warning at the end of this video. So just watch for another minute or two. This video is almost over. So this is the abstract. This is from the abstract of this paper. In this research, it is believed that the use of primitive methods of lifting and pushing blocks is not commensurate with the genius and skill of workmanship of the way the pyramids were constructed, as these methods are scientifically poor and measured in the current simple concept. The thing to understand here is not everybody's in the club. The people in the club know and understand how these things are done already. They release things, sometimes they'll give it a fake face and a fake scientist, just like Fauci. You'll probably never see him again since the Rona and after the Rona, right? So they bring these different people out and they say this. The fallen ones, the ancients, already know this. They know this stuff. Most of the rest of us have forgotten it, didn't see it, weren't here to see it, whatever the case may be. They already know how this technological force works, if that's what you want to refer to it as. It seems to be a part of natural law in some way, shape, or form. I haven't quite figured out yet, but it seems to go along with frequency and color, right? Which I've always said, color has sound and color has a feel to it as well. So, hold on a second, because I'm thinking, I don't want to end this without mentioning a warning to you guys, and I don't know how to phrase it. If the ancients already have this and there's nothing new under the sun, and we, the public, are the ones they keep it from, even some of the teachers who write some of these research papers. So keep that in mind. If you dig into that file, understand that, they're not all in the club either. Some of them are throwing mud at walls trying to see what sticks as well. I'm going to give you a warning, though. What if this time they try to pull off some type of ritual because you have the eclipse and you have this rumor spreading around? What if it does mean something? What if they do use all of these sound weapons and dues that they have? What if they do it? Signs and wonders from the Antichrist. And what if they don't do it everywhere, right? Because they don't have that type of manpower. But they just do it in one place, but they photograph it, right? What do you think? Let me know what you think down in the comments so I know that my channel is not on the dead internet, even if it's just to tell me to muck off. I appreciate you guys. Go be a blessing today. I'm going to try and be a blessing to my pooches. I've been up since like 4. It's been a rough day. I'm going to go now so that this video can be easily accessible. I hope this was informative. You guys have a blessed day. Please pray for me as I pray for you. Bye.